Support comes from UT Health Houston, home to Dr. Ricardo Mascara, who developed a comprehensive care clinic to improve outcomes for children with complex medical needs. More at uth.edu/manyfaces.
Support comes from UT Austin's McCombs School of Business, offering the Weekend MBA at Houston. Classes held in person on alternating weekends. Group chat with admissions June 18th. Registration available at texasmba.com. Make it here.
Houston Public Media is licensed to the University of Houston System, governed by the UH Board of Regents. Information about open meetings, dates, times, and locations is online at uhsystem.edu.
Scattered showers through the afternoon and early evening. After that, partly cloudy, low of 75. More scattered showers tomorrow, and a high near 90, which again is what it happens to be right now here at the
I think the storm is getting bad. And don't go outside as this is happening.
And from BetterHelp, committed to helping clients with issues ranging from
I am going to show you real quick.
to grief and depression. Learn more at betterhelp.com/public.
Because I couldn't say anything because of the
The
rain.
Capital One Saver Card. What's in your wallet? Terms apply. Details at CapitalOne.com. And from the William T. Grant Foundation.
I think there's a
research to
hurricane
improve
coming.
the lives of young people at WTGrantFDN.org.
This is 1A. I'm Jen White. For the first time since the 1992 riots over Rodney King,
Did you
the president
see it?
called the National Guard into
This
Los
is a
Angeles
real
in
rain
response
coming
to
from.
protests. President Trump announced
Don't
he
go
was
outside if this is happening. The storm is so terrible. It's gonna destroy the property right now. Do not go outside, everybody. This is so bad.
California's governor, Democrat Gavin Newsom, and the city's mayor, Democrat Karen Bass, do not want federal troops in Los Angeles. Both say the presence of the troops is causing more tensions on the ground. Mayor Bass imposed a curfew in a part of downtown beginning last Tuesday. Federal judges blocked the president's deployment of the National Guard, then an appeals court unblocked it, allowing it to stay in effect until a hearing this week. Around the country this weekend, millions were protesting the president's administration, including his actions in Los Angeles. Here's sound from this past Saturday's protests in LA.
I think the rain is getting bad right now.
What are
And I don't know if that's possible anymore.
when it comes to deploying active duty troops in U.S. cities? What does it mean for a president to use the military to tamp down protests
Oh no.
and help him achieve his goal?
I think there's a hurricane starting now.
Heard from many of you about this.
When you're in a dictatorship, as we are right now, with dictator Don, you can expect to have the National Guard and the United States Armed Forces sent in to quell small outbursts.
Oh no.
People
It gets even worse.
I believe President Trump is absolutely correct in what
I think it might be a hurricane.
trying to quell.
I think there's a strong wind.
It served as a hospital corpsman of Marines. The Marine Corps is one of
I
the
think it's getting worse and the wind gets stronger.
because every single Marine, from the lowest private
Oh no.
commanding general,
That's horrible now.
killed. That is their job.
Thanks for those messages.
Just don't go outside.
Latest episode of If You Can
It's
Hear.
terrible.
We're joined now from Portland, Oregon by Mark Nevitt. He's an attorney who served in the Judge Advocate General's Corps, or JAG, in the U.S.
I
Navy.
think it.
He's
Oh
also an
crap.
aviator and retired commander. He's now law
I am
professor
trying to
at Emory
record.
University's School of Law. Mark, welcome to
I think the rain is so hard now.
Great to be here.
It's gonna be
joining
causing
us
a
from
flood.
Washington, D.C. is Elizabeth Goitein. She's senior director of the Liberty
Oh,
and
crap,
National
not
Security
again.
Program at the Brennan Center for
I think
Justice.
the hurricane's coming
She was
back.
previously legal counsel to Senator Russ
The
Feinstein
hurricane is coming back.
in the Department of Justice. Liza, welcome.
This is not a joke.
And we
This
wanna
is
hear
serious
from
right
you.
now.
The administration decided to send troops
The
to
trees
your
is
state.
moving.
How would you react? If you're in California, what are you feeling right now about this
I
department?
don't know if this
And
is
what
safe.
questions do you have? Email us
This
at
is dangerous.
www.wmu.org. Now, Liza, there are two laws from the 1800s that regulate how the U.S. government can deploy troops within the country's borders. There's Posse
What happened to that tree?
and the Insurrection
It's destroyed.
Act. Let's start with Posse Comitatus. Explain what that
Oh
says.
no.
Sure. The Posse Comitatus
It's getting even worse and stronger winds are coming in.
from participating directly in core law enforcement activities, things like arrests, detentions, searches, and seizures. Unless
I don't know if I could do it any longer.
by Congress or by
Because
the
of the storm,
Constitution.
it's so
And this
terrible.
law is
And
protection for individual liberty and for democracy.
it's gonna destroy everything
If the president
by
turns
itself.
the military inward against the people, it can be a very powerful instrument.
I think in a natural disaster with strong wind.
But Congress has enacted some exceptions to the possibility.
Just don't go outside.
One you mentioned is the
Do not go outside.
Probably
This is terrible.
The biggest exception to the Posse Comitatus Act. And that law on its face gives the president significant discretion to deploy federal troops to suppress insurrections or rebellions, quell domestic violence, or enforce the law.
Did you sound alarming?
Obstructed. Now, if you look at the law, it seems to give the president almost complete discretion. However, the Department of Justice has historically interpreted the law much more narrowly in keeping with the Constitution and tradition. And it has taken a position that the Insurrection Act should not be invoked unless there is, to quell civil unrest, it should not be invoked unless there is a state request for assistance or where state and local law enforcement are themselves obstructing a federal court order, or where state and local law
I
enforcement
think this tree is just.
broken down.
Oh my god.
Obviously,
This tree is destroying it.
Although, as I'm sure we'll get to, the president didn't actually rely on the Insurrection Act. He relied on
This
other
is so bad.
Well, Mark, I want you to take us inside the
I don't know it's gonna be any long. Oh my gosh.
Posse
I'm
Comitatus
scared.
And deploying active duty troops on U.S. soil. President took
Oh no!
Insurrection Act.
Not again.
Troops,
I am very
US
scared.
Only 30 times in the country's history. Why is there such a high threshold? What conversations are had within the military about this?
Well, historically, the military, it's important to note, has been reluctant to get overly involved in domestic military operations, particularly for the law enforcement mission, because we have a strong tradition in this country dating back to our founding of the military staying out of civilian affairs. You see that in the Constitution's text, where there's a division between the National Guard and federal military forces, a sort of a fear of a standing army.
It gets
that's
bad.
throughout the Constitution's text.
This
And it was
tree
codified
is
in
torn
the
down.
Comitatus Act.
And one of the
That
trees is
lines up
so
with it,
good.
too. So within the
Still one of them
military,
didn't break
the
it.
military has historically
How is that even possible?
And those are increasing
Oh,
in the
no.
face of natural disasters and climate change. But when the military is asked to do a law enforcement mission or support,
I was been recording,
that is just a
and the storm is so bad.
combat.
This storm is so bad.
Is trained for
And we need to evacuate immediately.
domestic law enforcement.
This is not a joke.
Really foreign to most
Seriously?
military units.
Eliza,
Do not go outside.
behind why
It can't be
Congress
happening.
passed Posse Comitatus and the Insurrection Act in the first place. Take us into that history.
Sure. Well, as far as the Insurrection Act goes, because that actually came first, the Insurrection Act refers to an amalgamation of laws passed between 1792 and 1871.
I think it's gonna be destroyed soon.
Was
Oh,
that
frick.
there could be situations, there could be emergency scenarios where law enforcement would not
Wait,
be
what did I say? I
to
don't
handle
know.
that situation. And
Let me check.
back at the founding of the country,
I don't know
we
what
didn't
I
have
was seeing.
professionalized police
I couldn't
departments.
see because it's
There
so.
were, sheriffs, there were a handful of U.S. Marshals.
I don't know about
but
that.
we really didn't have the kind of capacity to address serious crises through
Goodbye.
civilian law enforcement that we do
This is
today.
so bad.
And so Congress provided for the president to be able to call up the militia in situations of rebellion or insurrection, or where necessary to enforce the law. And then in the beginning, when that law was passed, there were some pretty significant checks put in place. A judge had to approve deployment before it happened, and deployments to enforce the law were time limited, so that Congress actually had to approve them in order to extend them. Those protections were stripped out over time, mostly, at least in the beginning, because presidents were really very much adhering to the law. And so there was a sense of, okay, we can relax and get rid of some of these safeguards. Now, of course, it's probably not a great idea to take your umbrella down because it's been keeping you dry in the rain, but that's sort of what happened with the Insurrection Act. The Posse Comitatus Act was passed later in is
I have to be careful.
It has
While I'm trying to film.
igneous origins. It was
I'm
basically
definitely
not so
filming
that
or
federal
something.
troops couldn't
I'm
prevent
filming on my
the
iPad.
establishment
Has
of Jim
something
Crow
is
in the
telling me wrong.
post-Reconstruction South.
I cannot go
But
outside,
despite
and
that
everyone
fact,
else
the
cannot.
principle underlying the
Including
law
some
has
of them are
deep
still running
roots,
outside in
not
the
only
rain.
our country,
Very
but in
bad.
Anglo-American law more
And
broadly.
kids
It
cannot
dates
go
back
outside during the
centuries,
rain.
all the way to the Magna Carta. And the reason for that, of course, as I was saying, is to protect individual liberty, is to prevent leaders from becoming dictators. And obviously, under British rule, the colonies experienced force at the hands of the military in a way that really informed the way the framers put the Constitution together, which included this principle, even though the principle was not sort of officially codified until the Posse Comitatus Act.
Well, we are getting questions from you, and we got this one from Los Angeles about President Trump deploying both the National Guard and Marines to the city.
My question is, I want to know how that's constitutional when he has not invoked the Insurrection Act, and what we can do as citizens to prevent things from escalating any further.
Thanks for that question. Now, Liza, as you said, President Trump is not relying on the Insurrection Act to send in the National Guard and active duty Marines to LA right now. What is he relying on?
He is relying on a couple of different authorities that are much more obscure than the Insurrection Act. One of them is a law, 10 U.S.C. 12406. I wish it had a catchy title, but it doesn't.
Not again.
That is a very
This is
obscure law that
seriously
has
bad.
never been used on its own to
And this
quell
light.
civil unrest.
Did you see this light? This light is
It applies
flooding.
during, rebellions or when there's a threat of a rebellion or where the president cannot
This light is
execute the law
flooding.
without using the
I think
military.
it's filling up with
And a federal
water.
judge in California held that those circumstances were not met in this case. The other authority that the administration has relied on is a claim of inherent constitutional power to deploy troops to protect federal property, personnel, and functions. This is an executive branch theory that
I
goes
think
back a
this
very
light
long
is
time. It's
flooding
actually never been sort of
filled up with
officially
water.
endorsed by the
Oh
courts.
no.
And the problem in this case is that the military isn't just standing there in a line guarding federal property.
This is a
First of all,
natural
there have
disaster
been
in real
reports
life.
of soldiers accompanying ICE on its raids.
This is a natural disaster.
It's also been
This is called
that
natural disaster survival
at least
from Roblox in real life.
videos of them forcibly pushing people down off the steps of the federal building in Los Angeles. These kinds of direct confrontations are exactly what the Posse Comitatus Act was designed to prevent.
And briefly, Liza, you said this idea of there being no constitutional exceptions to the president's use